Who will win this election that is now taking place among us? And today is Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. For the Americans, this is the final day for them to vote if they are in the voting spirit. I want to say something before I get into the crux of the matter here, and that is the same spirit of the world is prevalent among the SDA community. I've never seen anything like this. And each cycle, it gets worse. The same spirit of strife that's going on in the world. Who are you voting for? Which nominee, which party is actually prevalent and present in the SDA community? And that dangerous spirit of separation and who shall win and who shall lose should not be found in the hearts, in the minds of professed Christians, even Seventh-day Adventists. They're even trampling upon people's liberty of conscience. Those who are in the spirit of politics, those who want to vote for this party and vote for this candidate, they're forcing their friends, church brothers, church sisters, family members, vote for him, vote for her, this party, that party, forcing people's conscience. That same spirit that tramples upon liberty of conscience should not be found among Seventh-day Adventists. And that same ideology, he's better, no, he's better, no, she is better, no, she's better, that same spirit, I'm wondering if people are realizing that the nominees for both parties actually represent the people. And if you really want change, where should you go? To the people. Think about that. The party's platform, its stance. Some of you say, I don't like this party based on these policies. I like this one based on these policies. If you really want to change, where should you go? It's not the ballot box. You go where? To the hearts of the individuals, on the job, in the school, in the neighborhood. Yes, Bible studies. That's how Christ worked. The change is not going to come from politics because the issue is sin. That's the real issue. If you really want change, you have to go to the heart of the matter, which is the people. We're acting as if the donkey party, if you don't like the donkey party, that the donkey party became terrible or horrible only in 2024. If you despise the elephant party, you're acting as if it became this way horrible in 2024. And notice, if you choose one party now, give it a few more years, all of a sudden you despise that party, that nominee, and you want to swing to the next party. And people are like the pendulum. Swing left, one cycle, swing right the next cycle, because you're looking for solutions in the wrong place, in the wrong person. The solution is in Christ. I'm going to leave it there. Today, someone called me, and that person was chewing me out. If I was in that person's presence, I believe he would spit on me. He would knock me out with a big stone. The man actually told me on the phone, he actually said, if you don't tell people to vote for this particular party, then you, Pastor Enriquez, is of the devil. The man actually said, if you don't tell people to vote for this party, you're going to lose supporters, you're going to lose money. By the way, Enriquez, he said, I was going to send you some money. And before he could get the next statement out, I said, what did you say? Are you bribing me? So if I don't do what you say, you won't, what? I said, brother, I can't be bought nor sold. And you are being disrespectful. You are out of order. And by the way, this conversation ends here. You know what happened thereafter. Rude. That's the spirit. It's of the devil. Yet he professes to be a Seventh-day Adventist. I digress. Today I'm going to be sharing with you that and more. It's official. The U.S. government is now tracking people they label as rebellious Christians and denying your religious exemption. All these things were prophesied to take place in the last days. Let's get back to the great question at hand. Here in America, even around the world, all eyes are on this November election. Who shall be the next president here in America? Who shall win? Well, friends, I don't know. God knows that. That's the question right now. Is it the elephant party, the donkey party? Who shall win? One thing I know is this. The Bible tells me that God is the one that removes kings and God sets up kings. So God knows who shall win. God knows that because he knows the end from the beginning. But one thing is certain. Safe to serve local, safe to serve international, first-time viewers. When you come to this platform, you come to receive substance. And today is no different. God is going to impart substance. One thing I know, whichever person wins this presidency will take this nation one step closer to the mark of the beast crisis. Whoever wins will take America one step closer to the second coming of Jesus Christ. I am certain of that. I am certain that we shall see the fulfillment of Revelation chapter 13, verse 11 through verse 18. That there's a change going on in America. Liberties that were once granted are going to be repudiated. You stay tuned. I'm going to say more on that. One thing I'm certain of is this, that Jesus has placed on this earth a time limit. This earth has an end date beyond which this earth will not exist. This earth will be destroyed, a new one will take its place. New heavens, new earth. And whoever wins will take us one step closer to that eventuality. Listen to me right now. I believe, and I'm certain, that the Lord is no longer delaying his coming. The bridegroom tarrying, we are past that limit. Jesus is soon to come, and we are one step closer to this event. When I woke up this morning, early in the morning, didn't get much sleep last night, just thinking about the times in which we're living in and how to assist others in implementing the 5 keys of survival. I thought about these several scriptures. The first one, in the context of this election, 1 Corinthians 4 verse 9. The Bible says, we are made a spectacle unto the world, to angels, and to men. That word spectacle, it means theater. So this election is a theater. This election is a part of the great drama of the ages. The only difference is, in a natural earthly drama, there are no earthly consequences per se. But in the spiritual drama, there are eternal consequences. Eternal life or damnation. And it's very sad that we have actors on the stage that play, illustrate, display, and speak of things fictitious as if they're real. But pastors in the SDA community, professors, teachers, speak of things which are real as if they are fiction. God forbid that will not take place on this platform. We are a spectacle. It's a drama. Look at this. The substitution of the laws of men for the law of God. The exaltation by merely human authority of Sunday in the place of the Bible Sabbath is the last act in the drama. When this substitution becomes universal, God will reveal himself. He will arise in his majesty to shake terribly the earth. So what is that last act in the drama? The national Sunday law, the mark of the beast. And this election is another, may I say, what do we call that in plays? Another scene in the great drama. I believe that we have a choice in whose side we're going to play on and in the drama. In every movie, there is a star and there is a villain. And both have their sides. Which side am I going to choose to be on today? Which side are you going to choose to be on today? You can choose the villain or the star. And the star is Jesus Christ. Listen to me. When you choose whose side you'll be on, you have no authority to say when you'll act your role. Let me repeat that. You have no say-so on when you would take the stage and play your part in the great controversy between Christ and Satan. It is Jesus who says, come on, your time, get on the stage. Your time, get on the stage. He orchestrates both sides. We have only to choose which side. Then Christ determines when you are brought on set. So I'm wondering, do you think it's providential or accidental? You have Trump being brought to the stage, Harris being brought to the stage in 2024. Watch this. If this is the final election before the mark of the beast, breaking news, let someone misquote me. If this is the last election before the mark of the beast crisis, then there's something we must consider. Ready for this? Two more scriptures I was contemplating. 1 Corinthians 10, 11 and 12. As it was in the days of Moses, the exodus from Egypt, so it is going to be in the last days. In Revelation 15, verse 2 and verse 3, in the last days, those who get the victory over the beast, his image, his mark, all right, number of his name. Listen to this. They will sing the song of Moses, the servant of God and of the Lamb. Stop it right there. Here's a point. Here's a point. So just before the mark of the beast crisis, the authority, let me say it this way, the spirit in the leaders in America will be similar to the spirit that possessed Pharaoh just before the Exodus. Do I need to repeat that? Watch this. If this is the last election before the mark of the beast, and before we can sing the song of Moses, that means that same evil spirit that actuated Pharaoh will control the leaders in America and the leaders in the SDA community. Ready for that? I'll come to SDA later on. Watch this. This is page 267 in the book Patriots and Prophets. The heart of Pharaoh grew harder. God declared this message, quote, I will at this time send all my plagues upon thy heart, upon thy servants, upon thy people. And in very deed, for this cause I have raised thee up to show in thee my power. Notice what's happening here. There was a drama going on in Egypt. That Pharaoh chose the side he would play on, the side of Satan. But notice now, it was God, the one who sets up kings and removes kings. It was God who said, now, you stubborn man over here, it's your time to become king in Egypt. It's your time to become Pharaoh. Watch this. Not that God had given that Pharaoh an existence for this purpose, but God's providence had overruled events to place him upon the throne at the very time appointed for Israel's deliverance. Though this haughty tyrant had by his crimes forfeited the mercy of God, yet his life had been preserved, that through his stubbornness, God might manifest his wonders in the land of Egypt. If this is going to be the last election before the mark of the beast, this is how the leaders in America's government are going to look and are going to act. Watch this. The disposing of events is of God's providence. Watch this now. God could have placed upon the throne a more merciful king who would not have dared to withstand the mighty manifestations of divine power. But in that case, the Lord's purposes would not have been accomplished. His people were permitted to experience the grinding cruelty of the Egyptians, that they might not be deceived concerning the debasing influence of idolatry. In God's dealing with Pharaoh, the Lord manifested his hatred of idolatry and his determination to punish cruelty and oppression. All right. So what will be the condition of America before the mark of the beast? Severe oppression, grinding cruelty. And there has to be a stubborn leaders in the U.S. government. And later on, stubborn leaders in the SDA organization. I'll give you one more before I segue. Therefore, the Lord did not deliver them by the first manifestation of his power before Pharaoh. Not the first plague, 10 plagues. Christ overruled events more fully to develop the tyrannical spirit of the Egyptian king and also to reveal himself to his people. They would choose to leave Egypt, give themselves to his service. The task of Moses would have been much less difficult had not many of the Israelites become so corrupted that they were unwilling to leave Egypt. Here's the point. God is going to make sure that America is going to be so totalitarian in authority, so draconian in their policies, so tyrannical in their mandates, that his people will learn to hate sin. So when they get to heaven, they would never choose to sin again. And that's why whoever wins, you will know how close we are to the end. And God is the one overruling events to bring the right person on set. On set. Lights. Camera. Caesar. What's the next word? Action. Thank you. Action. Come on, Pharaoh. Come on, Trump. Come on, Harris. Play your role. Do you know what's shocking? As I said in my opening soliloquy, many of the SDAs on social media, in the pulpits, who are for the donkey party and the elephant party, great strife and dividing families and church members. What if they had expended similar energies in the work of evangelism? Where would we be today? What if they would spend all that time speaking and writing articles on Adventist Today, Spectrum Magazine, Fulcrum 7? Where would we be today? How many more souls would be won? I digress for now. Let's come back here. You come for substance at Midday Power Surge. Much prayer went into this. So what will be the state of America and then around the world? Look how draconian the world is now. In this segment, I'm going to cover, it is now official. The U.S. government is now about to track people they label as rebellious Christians, and they are about to deny your religious exemption requests for their draconian mandates. And you're telling me that if this nominee wins, that means we have more time to get ready. But if the other one wins, it means we're closer to the end. Nonsense! Let me be redundant. Whichever one wins, it's closer to the mark of the beast and the second coming. The only difference is the angle, the perspective, the trajectory, the street, the path that's taken to the end. Look at this right here. This was rolled out October 30th, 2024. Headline, significant threat, quote, unquote. Federal government launches plan to track, quote, unquote, faith data. Now, when this was sent to me, I began to look deeper. This is Republican Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma. What's happening here? He's warning that a federal agency may be violating the First Amendment rights of employees with this new policy. What says the First Amendment? What says the First Amendment? What happened down there in Egypt? What led to the Exodus? God's people's civil and religious rights were actually stripped away. They could no longer worship God freely in Egypt. You see what I'm saying here, friends? Now, I know somebody would try and take the proverbial fine teeth comb and say, look at these evidences in Egypt. Now, these evidences represent only the donkey party. Let me tell you what I'm saying here. In Egypt, what happened? Did they promote infanticide, feticide, abortion? Kill all the male children, the male babies. And many will say, okay, that is a donkey party, so it has to be a donkey party nominee. If this is the last election, qualification could not be the elephant party nominee. Is that so? What happened in Egypt? They could not worship God in spirit and in truth. And the elephant party want the government to dictate what day you worship on. And they say, let it be clear, we're talking about Sunday. We won't tolerate Sabbath keepers, Seventh-day Adventist. Is that clear? Come back here. So just watch. Hear what this says here. So when I saw this, I said, you know what? Let me do my diligent search. That is the record right there in blue. It's called 89 FR 78,854. So I went on Google and typed in that number to see the actual source policy of this document. Mandate to track those whom they label as rebel Christians. It's on your screen right now. There it is. From government info. That's a summary. But the summary did not say what James Lankford, that senator, said. So I'm wondering, where's the disconnect? And I clicked on the actual long title, the whole thing, document in context. Look at this now. There it is, friends. There it is. It says, federal employees or applicants for employment requesting accommodation based on a sincerely held religious belief, practice, or observance. This system includes requests for a medical or religious accommodation. Listen now, there is another purpose of this system is to track and report. Now you stop right there. So let's say I go to my employee. I need a religious exemption because whatever policy in this company organization goes against my sincerely held religious belief, faith, and practice. Why do they need to report that? Report to who? That would be a conversation between Andrew Enriquez, the employee, and Company A. So where is Company A going to report this to? And to whom? That's the question. Listen. The purpose of this system, it says, is to allow the Department of Energy, this is the Department of Energy, and its elements. Who are the elements? What other agencies will receive this information? Let's continue. To collect, process, assess, and maintain records on individuals that seek medical and religious accommodations to carry out the essential functions of their job. The system will collect, maintain records that pertain to employees and applications for employment from individuals or other extenuating and justifiable circumstances that request or receive reasonable accommodation, including exceptions for what, friends? For inoculation. If you're seeking exemption from inoculation, the prick, based on medical or a sincerely held religious belief, practice, or observance. We must collect, process, assess, and maintain the records and share that with other U.S. agencies. What? So if I went to my employer, HR, Human Resources Department, I reject this mandate and policy. And they say, on what basis? I say religious. Where is your exemption letter? Normally, HR would take my submitted letter and put that in a file. Back then, it's in a manila folder somewhere in HR cabinet and files, or scan that and have a digital copy in my files. But now they're going beyond that. They're sharing that information with other U.S. government agencies. Why? Why? It's no longer a relationship between employee and employer, but employee and all U.S. government agencies. In other words, from that day forward, Andrew Henriquez is a marked man. Andrew Enriquez is marked as a dissenter to government mandates. He's a rebel against government mandates. And this must not only be known to his employer, the one company, the one U.S. agency, it must be reported to all U.S. agencies. So the U.S. government will know this man is a rebel against our mandates. He's a marked man. It's now official. It's very similar to what happened in Daniel chapter 1. Babylon said, here is a health protocol. Babylon said that. But there were 4 who were rebels, quote unquote, against that mandate. They were dissenters, quote unquote, to Babylon's health protocol. And there was a record made of it. So much so they were brought before the king. All overseers, all the masters of the eunuchs knew of it. The whole realm of Babylon knew of it. Do you know what's coming next? Why I went there? It's going to be Daniel 3. Do you oppose government mandate in the area of worship? Yes, I do. On what basis? Medical or religious? Well, religious. Where's your letter? Thank you so much. This will be reported and you'll be tracked from this day forward. Tracked. Inquisitors will be on your track from this day forward. Wherever you go, this record will follow you. You are a dissenter, a rebel. In other words, you can't be trusted to be on the side of the U.S. government. Let me say it this way. If war were to break out in America, they know who is going to fight with them and who's going to be with the enemy, or who are just simply incapable. So now they're weeding out, they're identifying, tracking, and weeding out those whom they know they cannot depend on to go along with their system. You are the problem. We must get rid of you. It's coming. Health first, then religion, worship. Watch this carefully. Next page. Just pause the video, read all the headings, different pages. This section is called Categories of Individuals Covered by this New System. And by the way, before I neglect to say this, I believe this system has already been put in place. Tracking, tracing, identifying who submitted religious exemption letters. They know who you are. And that was reported and shared all over. They simply want it to be on record now as official. This is what we're doing. So by the time it becomes breaking news in our SDA community, it's old news in their community. And by the way, they're telling you, we're watching you. Watch this. Have you ever seen some properties where there are no cameras on the property? And some people even tend to go and trespass. They're watching you. And one day now, you see a sign goes up. No trespassing, eyes. Smile for the camera. Smile for the camera. We're watching you. They have been watching you long before signs and cameras were installed. Does that make sense? I'm giving you something you can relate to. Come back here. This system includes, watch this, buckle your seatbelts. This system includes applicants for federal employment. Do you work for the government? And federal employees. Do you have a contract with the government down the line, directly and indirectly? These employees that request or hold on. So what if the company you work with receive government funds? So whatever you submit to Company A now officially must report that to the government. It's no longer a relationship between employer and employee, but employee and the whole U.S. government. That's why the fourth key of survival of the 5 keys is so important. Come back here. It says the federal employees that request or receive reasonable accommodation on medical or religious grounds, including requests for medical accommodations, or individuals asked to support requests for medical or religious accommodations, such as third-party medical reviewers or consultants, requesters physicians, meaning my doctor, requesters physicians, or requesters spiritual leaders. Lord have mercy. Beloved, beloved, beloved. In other words, if Andrew Enriquez is a requester, requesting religious exemption based on this mandate that goes against my religion, I must also submit information from my pastor, from my bishop, from my preacher, the church I attend. Now watch the point. If my pastor wrote me a letter, that letter will have his name, his signature. Nothing wrong with that. His address for the church. Nothing wrong with that. Email, phone number. That's in the info block on every letter. Letterhead. That's not breaking news. But that letter should stay in the company of the employee. But no, now it goes to all U.S. government agencies. So now, the U.S. government not only knows about the employee as a rebel Christian. Richard, you're shaking your head? You see it now? But the U.S. government knows of whom now? The pastor. I'm wondering how many pastors will now become hirelings, reveal themselves as hirelings. Since this is the case, I'm not going to write you a letter, because now the U.S. government will have my info, and my info will be reported, and now I am going to be labeled as an assistance to your dissent to government mandates. In other words, an individual could have simply turned in a religious exemption letter because it's his sincerely held faith and practice. The government is now saying, we want your church to be involved in this. Your pastor, minister to be involved in this. Mercy. Not only do we, the government, want to identify just the individual, we want to get to the head. Which local church is supporting this? Could it be now? Now the government can say, we're no longer going to give your church government funding, because now you are a party of going against our health mandates. We have to now cancel your religious exemption status because you're not government friendly. There's no quid pro quo going on here. Continue here, friends. Not only your doctor, your pastor, even a family member, even your attorney who request a reasonable accommodation on behalf of an applicant for employment or employee. What does that do? For starters, this trumps, pun intended, this actually negates and tramples underfoot the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which says the right of the people to be secure in their homes, persons, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, and of course, oath and so on and so forth. It must describe the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Now watch this carefully. Now the U.S. government can get the information of the pastor without a warrant. That's in the next paragraph. Hold on. Without a warrant. And it doesn't only stay with the company, it is now shared across all government agencies. That to me is the modern Inquisition. As in the Papal Inquisition in the Dark Ages, the US now has its own version. Here it is, because maybe you think I'm making this up. The next section, categories of records in the system. Date of request. Here's what the government wants now. It's official. We want the requester's first, middle, and last names. Employee ID number, email address, phone number, job title, watch now, pay plan, series, grade. They want the requester's healthcare provider's name. They want your license number. Huh. Hold on. Stop right there. How many of you work for a company and that company knows your license plate number? How many of you? I mean, what's next? We want to see all your private papers, your will and testament, who you're willing your assets to. I mean, what's going on here? They want everything. Again, it's natural. Because some people are in the back of the room. It's natural. If you are requesting exemption and you provide a letter, of course your name is going to be on there. Who you are, your job title. But look at what they ask. They want everything. Let's continue. Your healthcare provider's name, license number, facility address, phone number, email address, copies of employee records such as personnel actions or pay and leave records necessary for processing or effecting an accommodation, supplemental medical documentation as required, authorization for limited release of medical information. What? Now think about this. I work for the company. Should the company I work for not already have this information? Come on, you're not seeing this. The company I work for should already have some of this information. Why am I now representing it? Why? With additional information. Because it's going upstairs, quote unquote, vertical, and it's going horizontal across all the agencies. That's why in one place, they want you to do the legwork for them. Dangerous, right? But that's just the information for the employee. Look at this now. The requester's religious or spiritual leader's name, email address, phone number, name, email address, phone number of third parties involved in assisting the requester with making the request, such as a friend, health professional, or family member. They want the information of every person involved so they can now know who are the rebels against their government mandates. In this segment, I'm going to talk about the SDA leadership. Now, notice what happened in the pandemic. In the pandemic, Ted Wilson and Ganun Diop and GC leaders of SDA stated that they're not going to provide religious exemption letters to SDA members who work to give to their employers. They won't do it. Why? And they said, GC leaders, they said that this pandemic is not a religious liberty issue. Hold on now. But we just read the government said, if you don't want to take this inoculation, you have two options. You can present medical exemption and religious exemption, and the latter based on your sincerely held beliefs. In other words, in your mind, it is a religious liberty issue. Yet the SDA leader said, no, it's not. Let's continue here. Now, this is where I want to go and pump the brakes. This is the PARL counsel and director in the North Pacific Union Conference. Hear what he writes. Andre Wang, he writes, to qualify for a religious exemption, it must be based on a sincerely held religious belief, not a personal or political opinion. While our office, GC leadership, our office cannot provide an exemption letter on church letterhead, you, the person, can still provide your employer a personal letter that asserts your sincerely held religious belief opposing inoculations and explains that, watch this now, under the law, it is not necessary that your denominational affiliation espouse the same belief. Yet, what did we just read? They want, if employee is going to submit a religious exemption letter, who must they also get that from? Their religious leader. That is now official. Tying the church with the individual. That's it. Imagine this. The pandemic hit. SDA members ran to their leaders. Please provide a religious exemption letter. They said, no, we can't help you. You can simply provide your own individual one. We run over now to the company, the organization, the government, and what do they say? We want it from your church leaders. Now, you might say, it's both, Pastor. You wait until I get to something else. They're transitioning from individual letters to now individual letters coming from your spiritual leader, your church affiliation. That's what they want. So now, the church leaders say of SDA, we won't grant you one. Submit your own. We do it, and the government says, no, we won't accept that. Give it to us from your churches. Where are we? As we would say, between the rock and a hard place. And that's why the 5 keys of survival are necessary. Watch this here. It goes on to state, you may pause the video and read that. I'm going somewhere else. Here's D up. And what is he saying? We're not going to impinge on the government's policy. We will not provide a religious exemption letter. I'll pass that. I'll come back to that. Now, you watch where I'm going with this. There's your GC leader, Wilson. And he said, we're not going to provide you that exemption because in our eyes, it is not an issue of liberty based on religion. Then he says, you must submit to the government. GC leader said that. And they promoted Babylon sorcery, pharmakia. That's it. Babylon, popery, Babylon. Let me get back to this. Now watch carefully what this says. Please do not miss this. Please. Our position in the past has been to be supportive of government's inoculation, and we're not going to grant you a religious exemption. Now watch this. Here's where the rubber meets the road now. Friends, if you thought you heard anything draconian, watch this. Back to the government's policy. It's official. A description of the accommodation requested. The requester's religious belief, practice, or observance. That is the basis of their request for accommodation. The government wants a description of the timing, duration, frequency of the requested accommodation. Now stop it right there. Beloved, the government now is going to be the arbitrator if you are really a Christian. What do you call that? That's the government and church uniting. The government can't meddle in your religious belief. Here's the point. I present a letter to the government, my company, who I work for. I want an exemption because this mandate goes against my belief. That should be the end of the story. When the government, your company leaders, are now really digging deep to find out, are you truly a Christian? That means the government is now your pastor. The government is now the religious arbiter. The government can now define biblical doctrines, biblical faith. Come back here. On top, it says, the requester must submit their belief, the practice, the observance, how frequent they go to church, duration, the times they go to church. What? Continue. Supplemental documentation from the religious or spiritual leader is required. Description of the length of the requester's religious belief. Description of the requester's objection to the inoculation requirement. Description of whether medical or non-medical condition or religious belief precludes use of all or only certain inoculations. You must submit a list of all inoculations you ever took in your life. What? You see my point, friends? So if you say, based on my religious belief, I dissent on this particular inoculation for the pandemic, the government policy is now official. We want you to also submit with that all the other inoculations you have ever received. And your spiritual leader must state if they are against all inoculations. You see what's happening here, friends? The government has now become your doctor. The government has now become your pastor, the chief arbiter in health and religion. Is that not Babylon? Daniel 1. We don't care if you're Jews or Hebrews. We don't care where you came from. In our land, you're not our slaves. You must follow our health protocols or you die. We don't care if you're Hebrews, if you don't worship idols. In this land, you bow down to this image. We don't care where you're from. In this land, you must pray how we say you must pray, or be thrown in the lion's den. The government is now the chief arbiter of health, worship, and religion. That cannot be refuted. Let's read the last part of this. List of inoculations previously taken. We want a description of the requester's actual or potential essential job functions, a rating of and comments concerning how the requested accommodation, if granted, that must be underscored, if granted. That means the government can determine if we are going to accept your religious faith, belief, practice, and observance to dissent on their mandate. If granted, what does that mean? It means your religious belief in America is on fire, under siege. Look at what this says. Article 6 of the U.S. Constitution. No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States. The government now is laying out a religious test. So wait a minute now. Is the government going to call in scholars? Okay, hold on. So let me walk it down. So if I profess to be a Seventh-day Adventist, the leaders in the government aren't SDAs. So how will they know how to judge and give a verdict based on the words I put in my letter? Are they going to call in SDA leaders and say, we have an employee over here. His name is Andrew Enriquez. He claims to be a SDA. In this letter, he puts this quote from somebody called Ellen White. And these scriptures. Now, we call upon you, SDA leaders, to give us directions. What would they say? Lord have mercy. Well, based on their track record, what would they say? Well, Andrew Enriquez, the employee, is misinterpreting these statements. You're laughing? It's serious? You see that, my brother? He's misquoting these scriptures. And by the way, he's not a part of our organization. Reject his request. They called me in a meeting subsequently with a big rubber stamp. Request denied. Boom. A gavel. Boom. Boom. Why? Because we called in your leaders of this organization. Lord have mercy upon us, my friends. Because remember, in Great Controversy, page 608, because maybe you think I'm making this up. As the storm approaches, those who once profess faith in God's third angel's message will give up the faith and join the ranks of the opposition. And when Sabbath keepers are brought before the courts to stand for their faith, we're told that these SDA leaders and people will become the most bitterest enemies. Stir up the rulers against us. Against us. So we see the track record. That's why I made the statement. And we see prophecy, GC 608. That's why I made this other statement. Makes sense now? Look at this. It says First Amendment. Let me make sure the dots are connected here. There it is. Last sentence. If granted, the government is now the arbiter, the final say on health and religion. Beloved, look at this now. We're told the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. That's it right there, friends. I mean, if granted, I don't have to explain to my company, explain to my employer, explain to the government in details why I am asking for exemption. Once I say it's based on my personal religious belief, the concerns should stop right there. The mere fact I must explain as if I'm giving a Bible study. It shows that they are the arbiter. And church and state do not mix based on the Constitution. And the state cannot prohibit the free exercise of your sincerely held religious belief. So while SDAs on Adventist Today, 8 Today, Spectrum, and Fulcrum 7, on the SDA vloggers, vote for this party, that party, elephant, donkey, him or her. Do you not see what's happening right here? Sister White says, Volume 5, page 451. Are these points clear, brothers? Are these points clear, brothers? Sister White says, our country shall repudiate every principle of its constitution as a Protestant and Republican government, and shall make provision for the propagation of papal falsehoods and delusions. Then you may know the time has come for the marvelous working of Satan, and that the end is near. Stop it right there. In principle, when you see our freedoms being repudiated, we are no longer a Protestant and Republican form of government. We're seeing it now in several areas, but contextually. Protestant, it means a church without a pope. You have liberty of conscience. Republican government simply means a nation without a king. You have liberty. This context says the government can deny your free exercise of religion. Wake up! And notice the context here. They will now make provision for the propagation, which means to promote papal falsehoods and delusions. That's the mandate. The pandemic, Babylon's prick, sorcery. How much clearer can it be, my friends? Then you may know the end is near. And yet you want to tell me, if he wins, we have more time. If he wins, the end is nearer. If she wins, we have more time. No, if she wins, the end is nearer. Nonsense! The crisis shows us the end is near. And whatever you see in the government, that same spirit of Egypt is now among the SDA leaders. Same quotes. Same quotes. They'll trample upon the rights of conscience. Are they trampling upon the rights of conscience in the government? That is what the current event just said. Are SDA leaders trampling upon the rights of conscience? Here's Diop.
Some request letters of exemption, while being sensitive, of course, to the predicament and hardship of those who choose not to be vaccinated. The church has chosen not to issue exemption letters based on the prudence of not impinging upon the realm of state authority.
Next, the church can only vote what it officially, the church can only promote what it officially votes. I'm going somewhere with this. Inoculation, per se, is in no way contrary to the SDA church's doctrines.
Now, personal conviction is not corporate responsibility, but corporate responsibility in the form of an official church position, such as, for example, the absolute right to observe the Sabbath, not to work on the Sabbath, not to take exams or to go to school on the Sabbath, is supported by international law and can benefit from accommodations and exemptions. This is not the case for the choice not to be vaccinated. No international law has been promulgated against vaccination.
So what is he basing this stance on from the SDA leaders? International law. The man said nothing about Bible. So what's going to happen? Because Diop blended the health crisis with the Sabbath crisis. Did I misquote the man? No, he just did that. So what's going to happen when America enforces a national Sunday law and force people to worship on Sunday? What if we say we dissent and they ask us why? And we say based on our religion. What if they say now, bring a letter from your spiritual leader? What will Diop then say if he's around at that time? What will Wilson then say if he's around at that time? The GC leaders say who will be around at that time. That based on the fact it is a national law, submit to the government. Because it's an international law, submit to the government. And they are going to be the ones to call us rebels. Rebel Christians, oxymoron. Listen.
We have been at the General Conference accused recently for promoting vaccine.
Listen what he said. He never did that. Listen.
We have not promoted that.
Mercy. Lies.
But the church made a statement at one point.
Next. I'm going somewhere.
Okay. And in that context, the health department said that there is nothing, that will prohibit a pastor or a person, Adventist, to be vaccinated. All
right. So one department spoke for the whole church.
Adventists have freedom of conscience.
Stop. So what if the government call in the SDA leaders and say, we have Andrew Enriquez here, and he is dissenting, and he filled out this letter, and the letter says these points, and is quoting from Spirit of Prophecy, somebody called Ellen White, and is giving scriptures. What do you say as SDA leaders? You see my point? These men would turn against us. All right? For the record, listen.
Adventists have freedom of conscience to...
Listen.
However, that doesn't mean that the church has to stand for the person.
How could that ever come out of a man's mouth? Imagine a father saying, I won't stand for my son, my daughter, who is standing for God. A husband, I don't care about my wife. I won't stand with her. And yet she's standing for God. What kind of husband would that be? Father would that be? That's a reptilian viper husband. A reptilian viper father. That man is not worthy of the name house band. He has ulterior motive, possessed with a devil. They will not support you in a health crisis. They'll not support you in the religious issue soon to come to the forefront, the mark of the beast crisis. Not because I said that. Go back and read the book, The Great Controversy, page 608, as the storm approaches that paragraph. Seventh-day Adventists will turn against you, these leaders. Many a bright star that we have admired for their brilliancy will then go out in darkness. I'm going to close right here. The reason why I share these points is because when you come here, you come for substance. A time is going to come, people are going to wish they could turn on and find midday power surge. Listen what this says. Those who honor the biblical Sabbath will be denounced as enemies of law and order. Yes, causing anarchy, corruption, and bringing down the judgments of God upon the land. Watch this now. Sister White says, ministers who deny the obligation of the divine law will present from the pulpit the duty of yielding obedience to the civil authorities as ordained of God. I've read that statement years ago and frequently from thereafter and thought that was only applicable to Sunday keepers. But no, look at your statement now. GC leaders, Diop, Wilson, Finley, the secretary, they're all telling you submit to the government authorities is a biblical principle because they are ordained of God. And they quoted Matthew 22:21, Romans 13, verse 1 through verse 7. These are vipers. So sad. And beloved, we have come to 1,126 days without a public apology, Reformation, since that date is right there, October 25th, 2021. Maybe I must keep on counting to 1,260. As I close, I've come full circle. They're keeping a record of all quote-unquote rebel Christians in the area of health. Those who dissent government mandate. What's going to happen next? A record of rebel Christians who dissent on government mandate in the area of religion. Worship. Here it is. You may pause the video, read all of that. Just the middle portion. When that Sunday law is enforced, it will be urged. The few who stand in opposition to an institution of the church and a law of the state ought not to be tolerated. No religious exemption when the mark of the beast is enforced. None. I was wondering, how should I land the proverbial plane? And I thought about this. This current event is all about keeping records, tabs, track and trace, scrutinizing, investigating, and sharing this info across the board. Secondly, I thought about Satan being a counterfeit. And everything God does, Satan counterfeits. And the counterfeit precedes the genuine. What is Christ now doing in the heavenly sanctuary? Investigative judgment. Are there records up there? Are there books of records up there? Recording our thoughts, words, and actions. Just as the government is sharing that info across the board, will one day the books be opened? One day will those books be opened? I can hear the song, how shall you stand in that great day? Shall you be found wanting? Or with all your sins all washed away? The judgment has set. The books have been opened. How shall you stand in that great day? Go sing that song. Play the song on YouTube if you can find it when we close this lesson. What record is being chronicled up there? Are you more involved and more gung-ho for election? Vote for him. Vote for her. Where's that same energy to implement the 5 keys of survival? Evangelism, going into the streets, meeting people, Bible studies, calling people to prayer meetings, online, in the community, in their homes, and get to the heart. What is being recorded up there? What? And as we have come to an election, make sure you make your calling, finish it, preachers, and your election sure. That's 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 10. Verse 10. Verse 10. And verse 12. You need present truth. And by God's grace, you have received that today. You know what to do, friends. If you're new here, subscribe and hit the bell so we can keep on blowing the trumpet And when the trumpet is blown, you can be notified that food is on the master's table here. Safe to serve, prophesy again. Rest of you, you know what to do. You know. You know. Like, comment, and share. By God's grace, if we are here, we don't know what may happen, but if we're here, we'll see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern. God bless. Maranatha. The Lord is soon to come. Get ready, remain ready, get others ready. The protest, the Reformation continues.